Tonight's story comes from the quiet, forgotten corners of public transport, the place where strangers sit side by side, pretending not to breathe the same recycled air, and sometimes pretending not to notice the things that are terribly, terribly wrong. There are two kinds of passengers on late night buses: those who are trying to get home, and those who sit still for too long, with no intention of going anywhere. For 26-year-old Adobe, the night she met the second kind began like every other Thursday. She had stayed late at work fixing a last-minute project her boss insisted needed urgent publishing. By the time she left the office, the entire street was slick with Hamilton mist, the air too thin, too cold for comfort. She hurried to the bus stop, clutching her handbag tight to her body. The street lights were dim, some flickering like dying candles. A few other commuters stood around, shifting impatiently as they waited for the next bus. When it finally arrived, dented, old, with peeling blue paint, everyone climbed in with relief. Adobe chose a seat near the middle, pressing against the window. And that was when she noticed him. A man sat in the row directly ahead of her, not next to anyone, not near the window, just sitting in the aisle seat alone. He had a small backpack on his lap, the cheap, thin kind schoolchildren use, and his head was bowed completely forward, chin touching his chest, as if he had fallen asleep mid-thought. At first, she barely paid attention. People sleep in buses all the time. But as more passengers got in, something strange happened. No one sat beside him, not even the man who was looking for a place to squeeze in. He scanned the row, hesitated, then moved on. Adobe frowned. Maybe it was the man's posture, or his clothes, an oversized black hoodie that didn't match the weather, or maybe something deeper, something unspoken. Whatever it was, she felt a prickle of unease. The bus rumbled to life. Everyone settled in for the ride, except the man. He never moved, not an inch, not a shift, not a twitch. Adobe leaned forward to see if he was breathing, but stopped herself. It's none of your business, she told herself. But the bus had other plans. 3 stops later, the conductor yelled for passengers to alight. A woman sitting beside the quiet man stood to get down. Her brown handbag brushed slightly against his shoulder as she moved. That was when Adobe saw it. The man's sleeve fluttered, like something beneath it shifted. A slow, delayed reaction, as if the body wearing the hoodie wasn't fully coordinated. The woman muttered a quick "sorry" and hurried off the bus. Not once glanced back at him. Adobe swallowed hard. Maybe he was sick. Maybe he was just cold. But a strange scent drifted into her nose, faint, metallic, sharp, like rust or blood. She covered her nose and tried not to stare. The bus continued. A few minutes later, the conductor reached into the aisle to collect fares. Everyone paid with rumpled Naira notes and old coins. When he reached the silent man, he tapped his shoulder lightly. "Bros, your money?" The man didn't respond, didn't lift his head, didn't even breathe differently. The conductor frowned. "Bros!" Still nothing. The conductor tried again, tapping harder this time. And then the man's hand moved, slowly, stiffly, as if controlled by invisible strings. He reached into the pocket of his hoodie, pulled out a note, and placed it in the conductor's hands without lifting his head. Adobe's entire body tensed. The movement was wrong, too robotic, too deliberate. The conductor stared at the note for a half second, then shrugged and moved on. It wasn't his job to investigate strange passengers. But Adobe couldn't look away now. She watched the man's hand return to his lap and rest on the backpack again. The backpack was never moved, never shifted, never rustled, as if whatever was inside it didn't weigh anything at all. They were halfway to her stop when the electricity in the bus flickered. The interior lights dimmed, humming with weak energy before returning to normal. In that half second of darkness, Adobe felt something, a sensation she couldn't explain. It felt like the man had shifted his head for just that moment and was looking at her. When the lights came back, his chin was down again, still, silent, motionless. Adobe's heart pounded loudly. She pressed a hand to her chest. She made a decision. At the next stop, she would get down, even if it wasn't her stop, even if she had to walk home. Anything was better than staying on that bus. She glanced out the window, searching for landmarks. 3 minutes. Just 3 more minutes. They reached a narrow intersection where the bus always slowed down due to potholes. Adobe got ready to stand, but suddenly, violently, the bus jerked. The tire hit a deep hole and bounced. Passengers gasped and held onto their seats. And the man's backpack dropped, thud, straight onto the floor. Everyone jumped slightly, but not the man. He didn't react at all. The backpack had landed open and something slid out. Not fully visible, just enough for Adobe to see a hint of fabric. Dark, stained, like a shirt or maybe a... The man's head snapped up. This time, she saw it clearly. He lifted it in one sharp movement, like a puppet yanked by its strings. And for the first time, Adobe saw his face. It was expressionless, eyes open but unfocused, skin pale in a way that didn't match someone alive, lips slightly parted. His gaze didn't look onto anyone, not even her. He was just looking forward, looking ahead, finally looking up. Passengers gasped. One woman whispered, "Jesus." Another man stood quickly, shifting away. But the man didn't blink, didn't move his hand, didn't bend to pick up the backpack. He just sat there, staring blankly ahead. And then, in a voice that sounded cracked, dry, almost unused, he whispered, "Not my stop." Adobe froze, because the bus hadn't reached a stop. They were still in the middle of the road. The conductor shouted to the driver, "Oga, park, abeg." The driver swerved to the side and stopped abruptly. Before anyone could move, someone outside banged on the bus door loudly. "Open, police!" The conductor rushed to open the door. 2 police officers climbed in, panting like they had been running. "Is there a man here?" one asked, wearing a black hoodie, carrying a small school bag. Everyone pointed at him instantly. The officers exchanged a grim look. Then the older one said, "He boarded a bus earlier tonight. The people sitting beside him got robbed and stabbed. He got down before we arrived. Witnesses said he moved like he wasn't fully conscious." Adobe felt her stomach twist. The officers approached him carefully. "Sir," one said softly, "stand up." The man didn't move. The officers tried again. "Stand up." Slowly, painfully slowly, the man rose to his feet. And something dropped from beneath his hoodie. A knife. Small, thin, and stained. Not fresh. Old stains. Layers of them. Passengers screamed. Some jumped off the bus, fleeing into the night. The police quickly cuffed him and led him away. He never resisted, never spoke again, never looked up, except once. Right before leaving the bus, he turned his head slightly towards Adobe, eyes empty, lips parted, and whispered, "You were next." Thank you for listening to tonight's story. If this one stayed with you, tap the like button so others can discover it too. If you're new here, subscribe and join our growing circle of nighttime listeners. Until next time, stay safe and stay curious.